And let's start off with the humble, the elegant watering can. In my opinion, every garden, no matter how large or small, you need a watering can because of the manual flexibility of it. I can come in, I've got some young seedlings in this bed here, and I can just quickly give them this little drink that maybe they're not going to be getting from an irrigation system. So I personally really like it for that reason.
We got it. The Supreme Court has decided will decide if Trump's immune from prosecution. Justices agreed to take up the case and delay Jack Smith's election interference trial. Woo! They were counting on being able to put Donald Trump in jail. They wanted to put Donald Trump in jail. They went down to Big Fanny and said, hey, put him in jail. Well, now it looks like Big Fanny's going to jail. How special is that? They went to New York. Those cases are a joke. They will be appealed. They actually agreed to the appeal yesterday. So Donald Trump winning there in New York, however evil that is, I mean, it's completely evil. Get out of New York no matter what, right? They thought that they could rip Donald Trump off the ballots in Maine, Colorado, and we just found out last night, Illinois, when a traffic ticket judge, a judge who literally writes traffic tickets, decided that Donald Trump can't be on the ballot. That got destroyed by the Supreme Court, and many experts are saying that's going to be a 9-0 decision in favor of Donald Trump, okay? And now, the last thing they had to hang their hats on, Libs, the last thing they had was this Jack Smith case in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump inspired an erection. He inspired our erections. Like, that's the last thing that they had, okay? To hang their hat on. This absolutely deranged lunatic, this Obama appointee, this guy who's like a political assassin, this guy who's been like spanked and destroyed in the Supreme Court before, goes back for more, all right? Jack Smith has actually a long history of losing in the Supreme Court, and baby, the libs are freaking out. You can always tell when they are in total and complete, when the activation occurs for the most mentally ill people to start screaming online, you know that good things are happening. Okay, we're going to cover all of it and what this immunity claim actually means. And I want to sort of start at the core issue of presidential immunity. The president is the most difficult job in the world. Being president, there is no argument that, like, you are arguably the most powerful person on earth, the president of the United States. It is a tough job. This is why you're seeing like the utter and abject decay of Joe Biden. People that don't have the timber to be president can't be president. They collapse. They destroy themselves being president. Some people make really great presidents. Have you ever seen the side-by-side of Abraham Lincoln before he got into office and then after being president for 2 terms? Dude, this office like really it destroys people. Some presidents actually literally die in office. FDR is a good example of this. And so there's no doubt this is a tough job. And the reason it's a tough job is because you just never really know if the decisions you're making are right. And the decisions you're making have major consequences for people. Sometimes those decisions in the long scope of history turn out to be a horrible idea. George W. Bush, I am no fan of George W. Bush. I'm no fan of his father either. The decisions they made turned out to be horrible for America. Patriot Act, starting wars based on lies. But in the fog of war, you make these decisions and sometimes they're like horribly wrong. Like, for instance, straight up cold-blooded murder of Americans. This is a great example of a time when a president, beloved by all of our, of course, institutions, who has all these Netflix contracts, who's making movies now in Hollywood, Mr. Barack Obama. Barack Obama, while he was president, ordered the straight-up murder of teenage Americans. There's a teenager who was killed by Barack Obama in a drone strike. The ACLU literally sued Barack Obama over this. So this boy was 16 years old. His name was Anwar al-Awlaki. I'm not going to say that this was a good person or a bad person. I don't really know. What I will, and that shouldn't be up to me. It should be literally up to a court as to whether the president of the United States can order the literal assassination of another American, the cold-blooded murder of an American citizen via the American military. And the answer is no, he can't. So should Barack Obama be facing murder charges right now? Because on every level, including from the ACLU, yes, he should be. But because of presidential immunity, because there has been a long-standing rule that the decisions that presidents make, they are not to be criminally charged for, because it is a tough office, and they'll effectively, like, the judge will be history, right, on presidents. That's the way it's gone. Another, like, example here, ladies and gentlemen, if they open up presidents for criminal prosecution, is obviously we have a president who's still living who was a guest on Epstein Island like 400,000 times. Flew on Epstein's plane like a bunch of times. His name rhymes with Bill Clinton. So inspired was Bill Clinton, by the way, by Jeffrey Epstein's predations and offerings, that Bill Clinton invited Ghislaine Maxwell to the wedding of his only daughter. Here's Ghislaine Maxwell at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Look at her, peeking her little face out. But we're supposed to believe that Bill Clinton never did nothing on all these private flights where we know for a fact that Bill Clinton told his Secret Service to get off the flight so he could have a real one. All these photos of him chomping a cigar on the Lolita Express. Boy, man, it'd be really special to start prosecuting presidents. Man, there's fertile ground out there for any prosecutor with a little mustard that wants to gain a little cred with the Republican grassroots. Why would Ghislaine Maxwell be at Bill Clinton's daughter's wedding? Boy, not sure. Bill Clinton's on the manifest for the Lolita Express 27 times. And now we know from the documents that have been released that the underage trafficked women on Jeffrey Epstein's island, that they are straight up saying Bill Clinton was there. We had dinner with him. We talked with him. He was like being taken off to different rooms on the island. Maybe that's why when Jeffrey Epstein was murdered in federal lockup, the first people on that island were the CIA, the FBI, raiding it. Why would the FBI be raiding Jeffrey Epstein's island? What would they be covering up or getting their hands on? Interesting questions. Not for this show, though. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about something different. We're talking about Donald Trump here. I'm just trying to set the table, put a little meat on this bone. What's going on here, baby? The immunity news. This is massive because the Supreme Court's going to decide most likely in favor of Donald Trump, saying, like, wait a second, we're not we have a long-standing tradition here to not charge presidents for crimes that they may have committed while executing the office of a constitutionally protected branch of government. Second article. Here we go.
Tonight, this is a big win for the Trump team in the sense that it delays the federal criminal trial that special counsel Jack Smith had originally pushed to start March 4th. After a loss at the D.C. Circuit, which issued a sweeping decision ruling against President Trump on this issue of immunity, we've been standing by to see whether the Supreme Court would actually get involved. Well, today's order puts the immunity issue on the fast track at the High Court, with the justices limiting the question to this: whether, and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office? The order provides no indication of how any justice voted on whether or not to hear the case, but makes clear the court is, quote, not expressing a view on the merits of the issue just yet. Arguments will be held the week of April 22nd. A decision is most likely to come toward the end of the court's term in late June. Until the Supreme Court makes a decision, all the activity at the trial court level is on hold. That means only once the High Court does ultimately rule will all of the pretrial motions and discovery resume. Should the Trump team be on the losing end of a decision at the Supreme Court, it is sure to argue it needs several weeks, if not months, to gear up for the federal trial, the criminal trial of the former president, possibly pushing the start to late summer or early fall.
Oh, baby, I hope you have your salt shakers ready. We have so much salt to pour on these salty libs because they are losing their minds, because the goal was, of course, to put Donald Trump in prison, to make sure that he couldn't campaign. Man, these Marxists are such vile people. This is causing the panic. The panic is the timeline. If you care to know, like, whether these individuals who we are fighting on this program, We don't fight flesh and blood. We fight ideology here. The ideology of the Marxist is simple. Anything for power. Go look at the history of Marxism throughout any country that has been tried. Anything for power. They always lock up their political... It's the playbook. This doesn't surprise us. It shouldn't surprise you. They lock up their political enemies. This is the role of this is the purpose of the Marxist. Okay? And so we shouldn't be surprised when they have these hysterics. And the fact that they can't lock up Donald Trump in prison before November 4th, election date, is causing an apoplectic meltdown. And the Supreme Court taking up this case means effectively there's no chance of that happening. Zero. If you opened up your door this morning to grab your newspaper or a cup of coffee like I did, and your street was filled with salt, that's because there was so much salt flowing from Washington, D.C. down, all the way down to Florida. Big piles of rock salt in the street. Jonathan Turley saying, no chance, they're done. Watch.
But what he may have going with the justices is where to draw the line for presidents. When is immunity applicable? That wasn't quite so clear from the lower court decision. But the real victory here for Trump, it deals with the calendar. You know, the overriding push of Smith, the special counsel, has been to get a trial before the election. He's running out of runway. If this opinion doesn't come out until June, perhaps, you have to remember that even if Smith wins, the mandate goes back to the district court, which has to handle all the pretrial motions. That could take months. A couple of months could easily be eaten up, and then the trial itself can be 3 months. There's a standing DOJ policy not to have trials just before an election. So you're talking at the earliest, likely late summer, and it could be knocking on the door of November.
Oh, okay. So, what does this mean? This means they can't put Trump in jail. This means they can't put Trump in prison. And that's been the goal. This is the playbook for every single Marxist or neo-Marxist movement all around the world. This is the playbook. And they are running up against, praise God, the institutions of our founders that predicted something like this, because our founders came from something that was also tyranny. It wasn't exactly Marxism, but it certainly was tyrannical, where a very small group of evil people who had all the wrong priorities and could care less about the citizens of the country decided to make life far worse for those citizens to benefit them and their political ideology and their political power. It's similar systems. It's just power politics. So you shouldn't actually be fearful of this, because America is, of course, the institution that stands athwart this. This is the way that it was forever, for all human history. Praise God for our founders. Thank God for a country that actually was founded correctly and that has institutions like the Supreme Court to take up questions like this. Can we charge Bill Clinton for everything with Epstein? You know, Jeffrey Epstein went to the White House like dozens of times. You know, Harvey Weinstein went to the Obama White House like tons of times. Michelle Obama on tape being like, Harvey Weinstein's a great man. Then she put her daughter in Harvey Weinstein's company to be an intern when she was like a teenager. These people are monsters, all right? So can we charge them all? Can we charge Barack Obama with murder? Because this is not up to the question. Barack Obama straight up murdered an American, okay? The only person murdered on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt, American veteran, killed in cold blood without warning, unarmed. Okay? So, shall we open that Pandora's box? People who are logical and who are like understand America's founding and are free-minded people, like true classic liberals, as they would call us, who want to like live freely and not under the tyrannical boot, we say, yeah, this is actually really good. This is a good idea. Probably shouldn't be able to criminally charge every president. Then you'd only, you really would get like fascistic dictatorships if you could just criminally charge every president. But those who are the fascists are going to lose their minds because they love having all this power. They want every president to be under their boot. They want to be able to destroy the next Republican president and the next Republican president. And so they lost their damned minds last night. We have too many clips to actually like preview all of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just begin by saying this will be the longest in history. You're about to experience a historic moment. The longest in history, Salt That Lib, of this show. We have pulled our favorite clips from last night. Okay? Rachel Maddow, Andrew Weissman, McCabe, Raskin. Some of your favorites are going to be in here. We made a very special Salt That Lib compilation. All of the angriest people are furious and seething. And are salt, just rock salt, but like the hot rock salt from like a molten lava, like explosion in a volcano, pouring down their faces. So I want you to join us in this, the greatest Salt That Lib ever, for the fascistic neo-Marxist left learning that our founders 250 years ago know better than they do and have stopped them, have created institutions to halt Marxism. Even now, 250 years on to this American experiment, the salt must flow, baby. The salt must flow. Let's go. The biggest Salt That Lib ever. You're going to love this one. Oh. Go.
Then the appeals court gives a bulletproof ruling, as Dahlia says, and they still decide to take it up.
What it says is that they are corrupted political actors who act in bad faith. The reason why people like Mark and people like Dahlia seem to have a crystal ball is because they're real, because they're realists, and they understand the court for what it is. And at some point, people in the media, people at home, and people sitting in the White House have to stop pretending that the Supreme Court is some kind of benign, trying to do its best institution and start to realize that there are 6 Republicans, not conservatives, Republicans on the Supreme Court who view it as their job to help the Republican Party. And until we do something about that, until we take away that power, until we draw the line on them there, they will continue to do this. They will help Trump. They will take away abortion rights. They will end affirmative action. They will liberalize gun rights. They will do all of it until we stop them. And somebody needs to start listening in the higher echelons of the Democratic Party, because we will keep losing every day we allow these 6 Republicans in robes to rule over all of us.
So the idea that this is an open question, that it might be that a former president can never be tried for something that he did because he was president when he did it, is disproven by a plain reading of American history and the whole justification for Richard Nixon being pardoned in the first place. So the idea that this has to be taken up is them saying the sky is green.
Right.
And I think even for the non-lawyers among us to be able to say, you know what, the sky is not green even on our worst day, this is BS. You are doing this as a dilatory tactic to help your political friend, your partisan patron. And for you to say that this is something that the court needs to decide because it's something that's unclear in the law is just flagrant bullpucky. And they know it, and they don't care that we know it, and that's disturbing about the future legitimacy of the court.
I'd actually step in and say, I think this is too close.
I mean, I think it's important to take a step back and realize how big this is. We talk about so many different legal developments, but this could actually decide whether this happens. And if it doesn't, if Trump does win the election, this case hasn't seen the light of day before then, he makes it go away.
Gone.
The jury, the American people, never get to hear these charges in this case argued.
They never hear this one, and they never hear the Mar-a-Lago case, which I agree with Shan was likely to be heard after the election. Anyway, so you think about that. If as some of us think that this unlikely with this decision today that we're unlikely to have this case tried before the election, you're basically looking at a 50-50 chance that either of these cases will ever go to trial.
It's remarkable, Joan, the role the Supreme Court is going to play.
As you pointed out, with respect to the substance, it is hard to find somebody other than one of Trump's defense counsel who is actually with a straight face making the argument that you can kill somebody by ordering SEAL Team 6 to kill a political adversary, and that is official acts of a president that are immune. And so there's very little substance, and you have two really spectacular decisions at the district court and the Court of Appeals. So then you deal with the timeline and this issue of, does the Supreme Court somehow think, it needs to give sort of the stamp of approval. It should, as the highest court of the land, it should weigh in on this issue. There is a lot tonight to be pessimistic about. But the ultimate decision is almost irrelevant, because even if they were to say that a president is not immune, by delaying it so much, they are de facto saying that this former president is immune, and they're essentially having a sort of a de facto veto on the grand jury process